Hey people, Roman Arsafes here, and while we're waiting for the others to come in, I just want to say hi. Hope you're having a nice day, night, evening, morning, anything. And in the beginning, I would just like to say thank you for joining my stream. I hope you'll find it interesting. So today, I'll be mixing a song with just one plugin. And it'll be the Brainworks BX Console 9000J, the SSL 9000J. And the point of this video is just to show you that you can actually achieve a pretty decent sound and pretty decent kind of result with pretty much just the simplest way of mixing. So kind of like a channel strip in this video. Of course, you need a good one, but still it's just one channel strip, and I'll be using only that for mixing the whole song. So that's kind of the point of the video. Okay, Posty, what's up, dude? Hey, man. How are you? Wait, that's some cool as dope Cubase. Yeah, that's Cubase 10.5. And I decided to kind of start using it for streams because my favorite fifth Cubase is just being, I mean, generally it's not buggy, but in a stream, for some reason, it starts just freaking out. And the 10.5 is kind of more stable for a streaming environment. So, So what I want to say about this mix, this is a song called Jade. It's my song from my album Revolt. So I just have all the raw tracks here in this project. As you can see, I have a pretty nice color code going on. Drums, bass, 2 rhythm guitars, some synths. Some kind of percussion loops, another percussion, a little effects in the end, a violin solo. This is actually an electric violin solo. Vocals, some vocal effects, gang vocals, and the thing with this video is that I have all the delays and reverbs printed out. So I won't be using any effects for that in the mix because, again, I'll mix it just with one plugin, the SSL 9000J by Brainworks. So all the kind of fancy stuff like reverbs, delays, different effects, they are all printed out. So I have tracks for that. So why did I do that? Because I want this mix to be kind of an emulation of what you would do on a console where you have some printed effects that are already sent to you and you just have to mix the thing, so no production going on, just mixing. So that was kind of the idea. So let me explain what groups I have here. Just so that you can understand kind of the workflow that we'll have. So first of all, the drum channels. So I have a kick, a snare. The snare is already the top, the bottom, and I think that's all. Just the top and the bottom mix just bounce to one track because I like working with snares that way. I don't like it to be kind of 2 different instruments. The snare is one instrument, so they are consolidated to one track. Then 3 toms. So they are already panned, as you can see, by the waveform. So we don't need to do any panning with the toms here. Okay, so 3 toms. A hi-hat, right track, these are close mics, close hi-hat mic and close right mic, an overhead stereo track, and a room stereo track. So all these drums go into 5 bass tracks, a kick track. I mean, we have only one kick and one snare on this in this song, but I just made the workflow similar to what I would do normally. So that's why I have groups for each, for kicks, snares, and etc. So yeah, they go into a kick, a snare bus, a tom bus, overhead bus, and a room bus. And all of these go into a drum bus. I hope they do, yeah. This is mainly just for convenience so that I can move the whole drum bus like here and there, volume-wise. Okay, those are the drums. And yeah, for this song I used the Get Good Drums P4 kit, and it's a decent sounding kit, kind of suits the vibe of the song, and I just printed out again just not to get any other plugins in this session. I just want raw wave files, just raw tracks, so that I can just mix them with the channel strip. Then I have the bass. This is also a consolidated track, like the distorted and clean amp together. It's the Systematic Audio. Oh, sorry. They have two names of the company, I believe. Systematic and Submission, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Sorry if I am. So, okay, this is the Eurobass 2. I think you all know it. Then two guitar tracks. These are actually recorded like 5 years ago through a Kemper head, straight like line in. Some synths. Again, loops, violin, vox, and effects. So the bass goes into the bass bus. The guitars, both the guitars are panned hard left and right, and they go into the guitar bus. All the synths go into the synth bus, just so that I can have one fader on all the synths if I need it. All the effects go into an effects bus. Violin, same. And the vocals. I have lead vocals. So here's a lead, and here's a double for the lead. It's absolutely the same thing, just sung one more time. And it'll be kind of minus 10 dB under the main lead. Then I have some back vocals. So there are 5 of them. 2 of them are panned, like almost hard panned left and right, but just a little closer so they don't, so that we kind of have a pyramid of sound like going to the guitars. Then 1 center back and 2 more left and right back vocals, again like 90-90 left right. So these are all extreme vocals. The leads are extreme, the backs are extreme. And here we have 2 vocal effects. These are the verse vocals, and they are heavily distorted, like with different kind of weird effects going on. Again, they are all printed out. And a gang vocal is just like consolidated, I think something like 7 gang vocal tracks, like that kind of thing. Then we have the drum reverb. I have the snare, the toms, and a little of the room sent to this reverb in the first place, again consolidated. The violin effects, that's a delay and a reverb, I believe. And some vocal effects. So again, just the delay of the whole vocal track and the reverb of the whole vocal track. Again, they are bounced as WAV files. So all our effects go into their respective buses. So for example, the drum reverb goes into the drum bus. The violin reverb goes into the violin bus, and the vocal effects go into the vocal, I think, into the main vocal bus. So I kind of have a vocal group that carries all the vocal tracks. And I have kind of a main vocal bus, so the effects go there. Okay, so I think that's all. Yeah, and a master bus, of course. So currently in this session, I have the console, the channel strip, the 9000 Jade, on all the tracks that I will kind of be putting it on. So I already have all the tracks going through this plugin that we'll be using today. Everything is on just out of the box settings. I didn't touch anything. Just the plugin as it is. So you can see I don't have it on the separate drum tracks because I'll be using it only on the group tracks or the bus tracks. Then the same with the guitar. I have it on individual synth tracks, on individual FX tracks. Then I have it on the violin bus again, and on the vocal buses. Yeah, and some on the effects also, if again we'll need it. Adi Construct, hi Roman, greetings from India. Hey, how are you doing? Okay, and on the master, yeah, I also have two of the same channel strips on my bus, instrumental bus, and my vocal bus. Again, just if I'll need it, because I'm more used to a top-down mixing process, so probably I'll have some EQ and a little compression going on the two buses, as well as like individual groups and tracks. On the master bus, I don't have anything. This little plugin is just the thing that streams the audio from Cubase to you people. And here I just have an instance of SonarWorks. I'm using this just for reference. Somewhere in the middle of the mix, I'll turn it on and off. You will not be hearing it because it's just for me. It's for my headphones. Sorry, I think I kicked the mic. So yeah, it's just for my headphones. Nothing to be worried about. This is off at the moment. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole kind of picture. And let's start by just listening. Everything is on 0, all the faders are on 0 now, so we'll just listen to the thing as it is. We'll just see what's going on, and then I'll start moving faders, and we'll see how it goes. So, if you have any questions, please be my guests, ask them in the chat section. I'll happily answer, I see everything. So let's just see what's going on. And you can also tell me if the volume is good when I turn on the song, because it may be a little loud, but I don't think it will be. I think the balance should be good. So, okay, let's hear it. Okay, I think that's enough to kind of get the picture of what's going on. So first of all, the vocals and the violin are like drowned in reverb and delay. That's okay because all the tracks, again, as I said, are at 0 dB now. Nothing is moved, so we'll just see how it goes later. But you kind of get the picture of the raw sound of the song. And that's the main thing at the moment. So first of all, we'll bypass the vocal bus in its entirety. And also I'll bypass the synth, effects, and violin. So first we'll get the sound of the drums, bass, and guitars ready. And then we'll bring in the synths and all those effect stuff. And then we'll bring in the vocals. That's how I normally work and normally mix. So first of all, let's start with the drums. So we'll mute the bass and the guitar, because we kind of have an idea. I could do a fader mix now. Actually, no, I think I'll do a fader mix first, because there are kind of two ways you can go with the mix like this. You can start, like, if you have a clear idea in your head of the sound you want to achieve, you can just start tweaking stuff. For example, first the buzz, then add in the bass, add in the guitars, blah, 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 until the end of the mix. Or there's another way. You can just do a quick fader mix so that you kind of have the balance of the song ready. And then after that, you can just start tweaking inside. So I have an idea of where this track could go, sound-wise, because I mixed it before. But for the sake of it, let's just do it as if I wouldn't have an idea and I would want to just see the picture. So we'll do a quick fader mix. So yeah, we're unmuting everything. And first of all, I'll maybe bring the kick drum up a little. Maybe bring the synths down a bit, the whole bus. Because mostly in this song, the synths are kind of they're kind of background noises, and there's also a synth bass, even two synth basses going on that are pretty heavy on the high frequency, so we'll have to dug that later. So it's pretty distorted, and we'll have to tame that. So I'll have to keep that in mind. And with the other synths, just different background stuff. Again, most of it is heavily distorted, so I'll have to tame the high frequencies. I mean, not most of it, all of them are distorted. And here we have some... Yeah, these are all the... I have some strings here too. So this is kind of a choir and strings section. So probably this will be a little louder in the mix than the rest of the synths. Yeah, okay, let's go back to the balance. So the toms could be a little higher and the snare could be a little lower. Bring up the bass a bit. With these synth-based things, they actually play this absolutely the same thing as the guitars. So these are kind of synth guitar doublers. And for that reason, I want to have kind of big, massive sound, like so that the guitars and these synths are kind of one instrument. So I'm blending them in approximately the same level as the guitars. But then I'll just tame the high frequencies, as I said, and they'll just click together. maybe lower. These strings I have here, they kind of just also should blend with the guitar, with the high fiddling the guitar is doing here. With that da-da-dan, it just goes together with that. So it shouldn't be also too loud. Maybe I'll just, because the choir is playing only, I mean the strings are playing only in parts where the choir isn't playing. So I'll just get the choir a bit louder like this, so that we don't touch the string level at the moment. Okay, that seems pretty much fine. Now the violin. Immediately, the violin effects should go down. Yeah, at the moment that'll be enough. As you can hear, the violin is pretty dark, so we'll make it brighter. So we don't have to kind of boost the level too much now, because it'll be overkill when I'll make it a bit brighter. Okay, and now we'll bring in the vocals. Again, the effects will go down immediately.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. Today you're number fucking one, Jade.
Okay, I generally like my delays, my vocal delays, to be pretty loud, so I won't bury them too much. And the reverb will be buried pretty much harder, because these are extreme vocals. They don't need too much reverb. It should be just there to kind of make the picture full.
The neon lights are on.
Sorry.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. And all the hookers from the bar are here to join the fun. Today you're number.
Okay, the gang vocal should definitely go a little lower.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. And all the hookers from the bar are here to join the fun.
And as I said earlier, I have a vocal lead here and a lead double, and I'm ducking that double like -7, -10 dB. So that's just for support. The main vocal is still the first one, the vocal lead.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
Yeah, that sounds good. Now, we can work the lead vocal a bit, make it a bit louder. Now the gang could go louder, yeah, because... A bit more. Have some back vocals here, as I said.
Jade!
Yeah, and again, as I said, I already have them panned.
Jade! Jade!
So these are also kind of reinforcements for the lead vocal in the chorus.
Jade! Jade! Come on down to me, Jade!
That seems fine. Now let's get to the effects vocals. These will be a little trickier because they are pretty wacky frequency-wise, and we'll have to tame like a lot. So I'll just bring them to kind of an audible level, and then I'll work it deeper when I'll be mixing the vocals. So yeah, let's just listen to them.
The light of day, forget the light of day. The night is when you hit the road, the night is when you play.
So there are two tracks. One is just the heavy distortion one.
Day, forget the light of day. The night is when you hit the road, the night is when you play.
And the second one is kind of a wacky chorus stereo panning thing.
Forget the light of day, forget the light of day. The night is when you hit the road, the night is when you play.
They are already pretty much in the balance that I would like them to be. So I'll just take the whole group.
Forget the light of day.
And bring it up a bit. So you see, I'll have to heavily bring up the mids of the distorted vocal and kill the highs because it's like unbearable at the moment. So let it just be there. We'll see about it a bit later. Here's some drum reverb. I think that should go a bit up. And let's see what's going on with the room. Yeah, at the moment it's okay. We'll see the rest on the mixing stage. So now we have kind of a fader mix going. And first of all, I want to check the channel strip on the instrumental bus. Just see if it's doing anything. It shouldn't be. It should just color the sound, just as an SSL console. Yeah, it's a bit overloading. Nothing bad with that, because this is kind of analog overloading. So it should sound good. It should just, it should just saturate the sound a bit. And that's what we would like. So let it do its thing. And another interesting thing with this plugin, all the Brainworks SSL console channel strips, they have this cool thing going on here that's called the TMT. And what it does is actually it emulates the sound of each channel of this console of the 9000J that they were kind of emulating. So it emulates the sound of each channel because they sound a bit differently, and actually later I'll show you how, because it's actually a really cool feature, and maybe not everyone dives into it because it's not obvious. But when you have a full mix going, what I would like to do is, you see they have the random channel. For example, I have just 1 and 2, so it's the first and second channel, and I think it has like 70 something channels. So for example, if you do like this, it just puts this whole thing on some random channel, and it sounds a bit different, just a bit. Not even like frequency wise, but it sounds a bit different in the whole stereo kind of thing. They even have, you see, a stereo mode, analog or digital. When it's digital, it kind of brings both of them on the same channel. So the left and right sound like 100% identical. And when you get it into analog mode, which is always on when you load the plugin, it puts the two, the left and the right of the stereo channel on 2 different channels, and they sound a little different, and that gives you kind of a wider feeling. And it's actually really cool when you have a full mix going. So with the full mix, what I would like to do when it's finished, I'm cool with it. I'll just press the random channel all, and it'll take all the instances of this plugin in the session, and it'll randomize all the channels on it. So you'll get kind of a little different blend of everything. And it's kind of cool to just see what you like more. And I think that's actually why they did this. So just to have kind of different sides of the same mix you can choose from later. So that's a pretty cool feature, and I really like it. I mean, I've been a heavy user of the SSL 4000E, the same Brainworks console, but the 4000E. It also has this thing, and I'm just like using it all over the place. So with the 9000J, being that this is pretty new. I'm also going to do it. So yeah. And before we start actually mixing, one thing I would like to say, if you're not really familiar with the SSL stuff, I mean with the real thing, probably you're familiar with the 4000E because it's like super famous, everyone knows about it. Especially in the rock and metal world, like every second person uses some kind of an emulation of the SSL 4000E channel strip. There's so many of them. I kind of gravitate more to the Brainworks one because it just sounds better to my ears. So I think that's a thing of preference. And also I'm like 100% sure that it's super accurate, that it'll do the thing just as it should. So I'm pretty confident in that. And when they had this 9000J released, that's another console. They have like the 4000, 6000, 9000, and each of them has different versions, kind of with these letters that go after them. They're a little different in EQ, in compression, etc., etc. For example, the 4000 Posty, by the way, what's the difference between 4000E and G? There's a difference between the E and G. There's a difference in the EQ section mainly, I think. I'm not sure that the compressor is different. I think it's the same, but take it with a grain of salt. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm sure that the EQ is a bit different. And between the 4000 and 9000, the difference is much bigger. The EQ is, yeah, it's kind of different, but the main difference to my ears is the dynamic section or the compressor. This one is like, it smacks so hard because the the 4000E compressor is, I mean, it's hard. You can get like hard as hell with it, but it's kind of, kind of old school hard. So it's just like more pleasant. And this one, it can smack the hell out of a track. And I really like that because, for example, for electronic music, probably you'll need this kind of a compressor more than the 4000. But it can still do the stuff that the 4000 compressor can. So kind of a cool thing. And also the main difference is that the 4000 is kind of dirtier sounding. So it's a little more gritty. And it has more saturation, and you can, again, with the input knob, you can saturate it like really hard. And I'm not even talking about the software version, I'm talking about the real thing too. And this one is like super clean, but if you want, you can get it hard, but not the real thing. The real thing saturates like not that good, but in this plugin, they have the THD kind of thing going that saturates really pleasantly. So we'll be using that thing in this mix for sure. So yeah, I think I kind of explained the whole thing with the SSL stuff. So now we don't have anything clipping. We don't have anything compressing on the instrumental bus at the moment. Everything is on 0. We are cool to go. So now let's start mixing. So first I'll start with the drums. I'll mute everything else. We have the drums, and let's get it rolling. So, first with the kick drum. And again, I'm keeping the TMT now just as it is on 1 and 2, but when I finish the mix, I'll just press the random channel several times and I'll pick what I like more. Posty, thanks, man. No problem. So this clearly needs some low end, and it's a bit boxy in the mids, so we'll tame that. And it's kind of clicky, but clicky not in that region that I would like it to be clicky. So I'll bring up the 8K a bit. It's almost 8K because on the 4000 it's on 8K. So we'll just get it a bit higher. Come on. And we'll see later in the mix, but at the moment I would like the kind of high mid click go a bit lower. I'm not a big fan of like super clicky like metal kick drums. I like the kick to be kind of punchy, but a little softer than normally a person would use for metal. So that's what I'm trying to achieve here. Now, with the dynamics, for a kick drum, I'm mostly using like from 3 to 4 ratio. Let's keep it at 4 at the moment. Fastest release, pretty much like mid to slow attack. And on as on all the SSL consoles, you can use this little thing, but actually it's just like picking the knob up and down. And that, when it's up, the attack is like super fast. And when it's down, it's like mid to slow. So the kick is pretty transient. We'll need that transient information, so we're using like a mid to slow attack time. So we won't touch anything. That's off. So now, let's see. So as with all kick drums, we'll have to see it in the mix. But at the moment, I'm pretty much okay with the sound. Let's just check the levels. So yeah, it's more kind of sparkling, a bit more lows, a bit less low mids, kind of what we wanted. The compression is not like too heavy on it, but not too light. So -3, -5, I think it even gets a bit to like -6 gain reduction. I don't think that it gets to -6. I think like 4 or 5. And I think that's pretty much enough for our metal kick drum. Now I want to do the overheads. Then I'll have it together with the kick as kind of the foundation of the whole drum mix that I'll do with that engaged. So I have to pick something where it has at least some different symbols going on. Yeah, as you can see, I put the hi-hat and the ride into the overhead bus because that's how I like it to be. I just keep the hat channel and the ride channel as kind of auxiliary tracks that if I will need to boost them, I'll boost them. But mainly I just keep them kind of dug down in the mix of the overheads. And they all go to the same bus, the overhead bus, and that's what I work with. So I don't kind of do anything to the individual tracks. So what I would like to get with the overheads. So first of all, I'd like to get rid of the low end that I don't really need here. I'd keep the snare a little bit because you could like go like full like crazy metal, and I mean don't let the 1.4K fool you because the slope is like it's super steep. It's not anything crazy. So something like this would be like normal for a metal mix. That's not what I like. As I was say, I kind of like more of a rock approach to a mix than kind of a full-blown metal approach. I like the mix to be big and to breathe. So that's why I'll keep a little more info in the overheads. For me, the main thing is just to get rid of the kick drum. Now, with that done, we can get it to shine a bit. Again, like around 10K. And I'll duck the that mid-range frequency that's occupied by the snare here just a bit, so that it doesn't sound pokey in the mix when we bring in all the other drums. So that should do the trick. And now with compression, I'm not a big fan of like over compressing overheads. I just like to compress it a bit so that it just touches the snare that goes into the overhead mics. And with a fast release and a fast attack, because I want to kill the transient a bit. Ratio again over like 3-4. So that's pretty much enough, because you'll see in the mix that it'll work. Now it's not that obvious. We won't actually compensate the level because I wanted it a bit higher, so that's okay. So now we'll engage the overheads and the kick together. Okay, I think I need to tame the high frequencies a bit more, like the area where all the main kind of cymbal noise is situated. So that's like around 6K something, 5, 6. Let's just see. So that kind of the overhead sound a bit deeper. Now let's bring in the snare. So immediately the snare is pretty dark, so I'll need some high 8K something, so that it blends with the overheads. Then I want to get rid a bit of the low mids. Exactly that. I'll get it a bit of like 2K. So that the attack is kind of punchier. And a bit of 200 with a bell. So that we just have a bit more low end. With compression, same. I mean, I usually kind of start with like 4, with a ratio of around 4. So you'll see me doing that almost on everything. I mean, I'll go higher only on something like rooms or something where I really want to smack the track. So kind of 4:1 is my go-to ratio. So for a snare, again, we want the transient to be kind of smacky, so the attack will be slow, the release will be fast. And let's see. And here is where this thing really shines, because it's really, the compressor is like, I don't know how to call it. It's so crisp. I'll over-exaggerate a little just so that you hear how crisp it actually is. You see, it's like, it's so cool actually, because not many compressors do this kind of thing. But we don't want it to be that hard. With the snare, I go something from 6 to 8 gain reduction Depends on the song. Here I can go a bit harder because the song is kind of mid to fast and it's pretty dense. So the snare should be more pokey than normally. And we can use some saturation that this THD has here. We'll solo the snare for that. You see it gets warmer immediately. And I think I'll even like put it to maximum. You see it brings out the kind of cool, natural, kind of fizzy component in the sound. And the bottom snare immediately kind of comes out. But it's not overkill, and the cool thing is that with all these SSL plugins, I mean, with the 4000 you can make it overkill, but here anything that you do will sound pleasant. It's not going to like ruin and oversaturate the whole thing. So that's pretty good if you don't really know what to do with saturation. You can crank it and it'll still be bearable. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. Now let's bring in the room, and then we'll do the toms in the end. So, with the room, I'll filter out a bit of the high frequencies. Because in a metal mix, the overheads will care about that. And I'll filter out a bit of the kick too. So my main emphasis is the snare. My room should be kind of the snare fattener kind of thing. So I'll also boost a bit of that 2.4K that I boosted on the snare to get the attack of the rooms a bit higher. And again, I just can't say how much I like the SSL EQ, because it just sounds great. When you tweak, you just hear how musical actually it sounds. And especially I like that on this 9000 because it's a little, the EQ section is, maybe I'm wrong, but kind of to my ears, it sounds a bit kind of more polished than the 4000E. And so kind of even more hi-fi, more modern. And that's a cool thing if that's what you want. That's what I want in this mix. So good for me. And I want to boost a bit of the kind of low snare information with a bell again. But not touching the kick, so I won't be around 200 because the bell is pretty big here. It'll touch the kick frequencies, and we got that filtered out almost to like 250. So we'll just bring the fatness of the snare. So why I'm doing this to the room? I don't like to rely heavily on reverb for making the snare big. The room will do that like totally. And then the reverb is just like the cherry on the top. So that's why even in a metal mix, you should really watch the room. You should have it pretty high in the mix. I mean, you should. I'm not saying you should, but it's a good idea to do it. Because as we know, music is subjective. And again, I always like to do this. Okay, we'll turn off the reverb at the moment. You hear the whole drum mix, and now I'll turn off the room, and you'll just hear what happens. It'll be drastic. You see? It's just like the drum mix is immediately stripped off of all the awesomeness, and it becomes just like, and absolutely not interesting. So yeah, that's what the room does. And now we'll get the toms going. In GGD libraries, mainly the toms are pretty raw. I mean, the snare and the kick have some processing, but the toms sound like they almost don't have any processing, I mean, in the plugin. So, as we all know, or some of you don't know, natural toms sound really bad for metal because they are very mid-heavy. You absolutely don't need that in a metal mix. It just sounds stupid. Sorry if some of you like mid-heavy toms. I didn't want to hurt your feelings. So what we're going to do is actually boost some highs, boost some lows, tame the mids, and compress just a bit because I don't like heavily compressed toms. That's my way. PK, woohoo, made it somewhat on time. Haha, yeah, finally. Finally you made it. Yeah, we're just like, well, not beginning. We're already almost an hour here. But I'm kind of mixing the drums at the moment. So with the toms, first of all, again, I'm boosting around 8K. That's kind of also my go-to high frequency boost. I think that's subconsciously from the CLA kind of way to mix because he always boosts 8K, and probably I just got that into my mind and I started liking the sound of it. And that's kind of good go-to frequency, like around 8K for stuff. Okay, now we don't need these awful mids. Here they are. You see? It's immediately better. And we'll get a little stick attack. And just a bit lows, but I won't go too crazy with the lows, just so that the tom tails don't take over the mix. Because that's also pretty bad when you have, for example, like some low toms, for example, like dot down, something like that, or just a break ending on low floor toms. And then the tail just like, and it takes over the mix, it goes under your master compressor and just ruins the whole thing. So we don't want that to happen. And I think I'll even filter out a bit. Because we don't need the toms to go like too low. And now we'll just boost the lows a bit. But the good thing with light compression on toms is that it doesn't bring up that tail too much. It actually almost doesn't even touch it. So that the tail just kind of goes into oblivion. But I'll show you what would happen if you heavily compress these kind of toms. So mostly with toms I use a fast attack because I want the transient tamed a bit. That's probably weird to hear, but when you have like really pokey toms that are like transient heavy, it doesn't sound good in a mix. You want a bit more body. And given the fact that, again, around 4, given the fact that I'll be compressing them really slightly, it'll work almost as just a light limiter on the whole tom bus that'll just clean up the highest peaks of the toms. So you'll see on the meter what'll happen, and you'll hear that it almost doesn't do anything, but it just like tames a bit. And let's loop this little thing here. So you see it's barely touching it, and the input ratio is kind of, not ratio, the input level is kind of good here, so I don't even need to touch the threshold. So now in a mix they'll sound kind of pretty natural, but they'll be there and they'll do what they should do. We just need to bring them up a bit. Maybe give them a bit more high end. So yeah, they're there. With the full mix, probably we'll need to bring them up a bit more. We'll see where when we have the bass and the guitars in the mix. And now we bring in the reverb. Again, I want to get rid of the low end information, because this is again just helping all the drums. I mean, not all the drums, the snare and the toms mainly, and a bit room is going into the reverb. It's just helping the sound just get a little more like shiny and a little bigger, but not on the low end, more like in the mid frequency. So again, I'll boost a bit of that 2.4, 2.5. And just a bit low mids. We'll see actually. Probably I won't need that. We'll just check it in the mix. And we can bring the room up a bit. I think I can bring the low mids a bit more in the room because it's a bit scooped there. Yeah, I think this will work pretty good. Yeah, you see immediately the snare became like much bigger. So now in the whole drum mix, I'm just hearing the toms to be a bit weird, so I'm just like tweaking a bit of the EQ. Okay. Now we want to also, sorry I didn't add the track, I'll add it now. So I'll need a little drum compression going on, the parallel drum compression. So let's call this effects Drew comp. We'll make it red. And this will go here. So this is going into our drum group. PK, Jade, yeah. Oh yeah, removing lows from rooms does wonders, and it seems like many mixers forget that sometimes. Yeah, and actually I even know many mixers like their rooms to be like low and heavy. They like to augment the kick drum with the rooms too. I'm not a big fan of that. If I would want my kick drum to be more roomy, I would just I would augment it with the kick drum kind of room sample that will work only for this kick drum, and I can like shape it as I want, because I don't find an overall room kick sound to work like good in the mix. Don't know, I just think it's muddy. So now back to the drum compressor. So again, same thing, we're using only one plugin, as I said. So this will be our drum compressor, our parallel drum compressor. So our kick, snare, toms, and a bit of room will go into this one. And immediately it'll be fast attack and kind of like mid release, let's say it like that. We'll see, maybe even slower. It depends. So here I just want the body of the drums to go a little up so that the drums become even bigger. I won't touch the EQ on this, don't need that. So let's just get the drums going. just open the plugin and see what happens. Because sometimes parallel compression is not that obvious. I mean, we don't want it to be that obvious. That's the thing. So you can just bring the bus down actually, so that we can compress it a bit harder, but we won't have it like too high in the mix. So now you hear it's there, it brings up a little bit of the low end. So just fattens up that was the kick drum, just fattens up the kick drum. Now the snare. Same thing, just a bit fatter. Same thing with the toms. PK, exactly, I do that too. I used Easy Drummer 2 samples at this time, and depending on the libraries, the rooms tend to sound very hollow and boomy, which to my ears kind of kills the tightness. Not doing, yeah, totally. And a bit room goes into the parallel compression just for the sake of gluing it together. So I think we have a pretty cool drum group going on here. And remember, this is just using one plugin. This is only the Brainworks SSL 9000J. Now let's bring in the bass. So here, of course, I want some more low end. And at the moment, probably that'll be everything I need. Maybe I'll just duck the high mid kind of nastiness going on in the Eurobass. It's not nasty, it's just bright. I don't need that in this mix, so I'll tame that a bit. And a bit of compression. With bass, I'll use fast attack, fast release. I just want the bass to become like one kind of sausage thing. Same for, I think I forgot to bring the ratio a bit higher on the drum comp, the parallel. Let's listen to it again. Well, it was close enough. It's like 3 and 5 something when you just load the plugin. So we were close, but just to keep things tidy, we were getting to 4:1. So the bass can come up a little louder too. One thing that I kind of found out for myself in the past years is that I really don't like 150 hertz in my bass. So by all means, I'm trying to tame that. To my ears, it sounds kind of nasty. I mean, in the bass guitar, not in low frequencies. So I kind of dug that on bass guitars, but here I'll just start boosting the low end just before 100 hertz. So I'll be barely touching the 150 because we're not using any other EQs, so I won't be able to kind of sculpt it out. So we're going the old school way. So we're having some good low end here. And I'll also do a couple of tricks here with the bass and later with the vocals, because we don't have any de-essers or dynamic EQs that we can sidechain. I mean, you can de-ess inside the plugin kind of with the sidechain function here on the EQ, Then you just boost highs and it kind of sidechains that to the compressor. Come on. But it's not as responsive as I would like it to be for de-essing or for sidechaining a kick into a bass. So for that, I'll just put another instance of this plugin, and you'll see what I'll do with it. And not only of the plugin, another instance of the track itself. Okay, but we'll talk about that later. So I think I'll boost a little, like 900. To get that kind of modern, mid-range, angry bass kind of sound. And I'll tame that bright, nasty thing. Yep, that sounds nice. Okay, let's filter some highs out. Because basically in metal bass you don't need anything above like 6K. We'll kind of compensate for that. So I want to leave the highest high like thing still going on because it kind of sounds cool in a mix, but I want that nastiness to go down. So on this band I'm just taming the nastiness, and on this I'm just compensating a bit. You know, like in that Pultec kind of trick, but I'm just doing it here. Same thing. I think it sounds good. We can also filter out the lowest low end that we don't need, that the kick occupies. Something like... just cleaning up mess. Okay, now, first trick. So we just copy the kick track, and this will go to like, let's make a silent bus, because I don't want to think about pre and post faders and sends. So this will be just silent. I know this is a dumb way to do it, but it doesn't matter. So this will go in the silent bus. The silent will then just go into nowhere, so we won't hear it. But the thing is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter everything out, leave only the low end of the kick, and then I'll send that into another instance of the same plugin on the bass guitar that'll just compress based on this kind of low-end information. So, what I'm going to do, we don't need anything, only the low end. So this is our channel for sidechaining to the bass. Now what I'll do, first of all, I want to compress the bass just a bit, like with normal compression. Just a bit, because again, this is a sampled bass. It's already like pretty neat, but we can just glue it a bit. Just not too heavy. Whoops. Okay, cool. Now, on the bass, I'm going to bring in another instance of the 9000. And this time, what I'll do, I put the key function. This lets the compressor to be sidechained by any track in the project. So, actually, what'll be cool to do, I think I'll even do it that way. I'll just kind of imitate some multiband compression here, because I don't really want the kick to duck the high mids, even the low mids and the highs of the bass. I wanted to duck only the low the low information. So for that reason, I think I'll split the bass. So this will be kind of our high bass. So this won't be ducked at all by the kick. And this will be our kind of low bass. So. And for this, I'll actually turn off the analog mode, because it'll be pretty weird in the stereo image. We want this just to be like a straightforward mono digital compressor, but because I have the bass on stereo tracks here, I'll have to imitate that with just bringing the stereo mode to digital. So you see, if you listen really carefully, when you bring it to analog, it goes a little to the right ear. The stereo image kind of gravitates to the right. And now when I turn it off, it just comes back to the center. I hope you heard that. So now we have the low. The low and the high kind of bass. And, okay, we don't need this at the moment. Okay, the low can be a little higher. And actually, I kind of got rid of that 150 somewhere in the chain on top, because probably the kind of crossfade between the frequencies is somewhere around that region. So we just got a kind of a duck there, as you can hear. Probably I'll have to compensate that a bit, but not too much. So now what we'll do. In this bass, okay, first of all, I'll have to check. We don't need this one here, because we'll be doing all the side chaining on the individual track, the second one, the bass track. Let's call this bass high, bass low. So again, this is the same track, just with different EQ, with different filtering. Now on this, we're putting the key on, so that this auxiliary kick drum goes into that. And on this, we should just check if the key is off. Yeah, everything's good. And now we just send the kick. Oh, sorry, didn't turn on the sidechain. Okay, now we can send the kick into this bass low track. Here it is. And let's just listen to it. Whoa, sorry. That's not the way we want it to work. So you see what it's doing. The kick is now sidechained only to the low frequencies of the bass. If I just exaggerate it a little, you'll just hear what's going on. You know that much. Okay, let me check one thing. Not sure that it's working at the moment. Okay. Actually, let's check it on some other part where the kick is not so crazy. What's going on? Ah. Was it off the whole time? I don't know. I'm so sorry. It was just a little out of this world at the moment. Okay, again. Yeah, now you can hear, okay, now it's working. You can hear that it's ducking the low end a bit. Okay, that's what we needed, finally. I think we can even bring it a bit more. I think we can probably make the attack like fast. Okay, then we'll just see in the mix how it works, and then we'll see if we need more, if we need less, etc. So. And now just by muting and unmuting this auxiliary kick, let's just call it KD dummy. You can just hear how the bass gets a little more and a little less low frequencies. Probably you could just get a little more low end on the bus. Okay, at the moment I'm cool with that. Let's bring in the guitars. So the guitars mainly I'll just filter out some lows. And maybe bring that little like pick attack thing a bit down, and mainly that's all. And especially with this with these guitars from the Kemper, they sound pretty good on their own. Okay, it's going into some compression, we don't need that. Well, actually, not to go in this whole crazy kind of multi-band kind of thing, we can get the compressor just working just a bit so that it just ducks it when the palm mute happens. Just a bit, because compression on guitars, on heavy guitars, sounds not that good. On guitars, I would also use a bit of the saturation kind of thing, because I really like how analog or analog emulated saturation sounds on heavy guitars. Kind of gives it a fat character. Okay, let's find that little nasty thing. And let's filter out some highs. But not too much. And again, we'll probably need to compensate it a little. Wrong way. Yeah, now you can hear we got rid of that kind of thing on the top, but we still brought up some more highs, kind of the more pleasant highs, and we have a more fat, like big kind of sound. So listen without. And it'll sit in the mix better. Okay, PK, wow, your guitar tone when soloed sounds so clean and tight. It's sort of like a twangy, trebly sound that I dig. Like not stereotypically over distorted metal tones. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm a big fan of kind of a friend of mine, actually Posty in this chat. He told this to me one time and I was like, yeah, that's like the best description of my metal tone. That it kind of sounds like a Telecaster from hell. Yeah, that's what I want it to sound like. I really like twangy, not that much high gain kind of tones for metal. And I think that in the mix, it works much better for me, of course, than just like a angry, like super distorted heavy metal thing. And bear in mind that this was recorded on an 8-string in E, so that's like an octave lower than the standard guitar tuning. So that's kind of super low. And the bass is playing in unison to the guitar, so it's just standard E. Oh, sorry. That's a mistake. Yeah, it was recorded on that E 8-string, but this is actually in B, so it's on the 7th string. So the bass is not in unison. Sorry. Yeah, you can clearly hear the octave below. So forget about that. Now I think I want the snare to become a little pokier, but a little lower in the mix. PK, oh Jesus, and Retocracy was an F? No, Retocracy was an E actually, so lower than F, like half tone lower. And actually half of Revolt is also an E, but just this song is in B. So let's see. So you see what I did here. If you imagine the snare as kind of a triangle, it can either be like this, so it's super pokey, or it can be something like this, so it's like not that pokey and fat. So what I did here with the snare and the room is that I left it kind of like this, the snare itself, but the room is like this. So together they form this kind of much bigger pyramid than they were. And bringing the snare a bit lower in the mix, but making it pokier, it's kind of not that intuitive, but it actually makes it deeper and bigger because of the room sound that's kind of underneath. You see, it's kind of a little further now, but still pokey enough. I also think the room could use a little of saturation. It's kind of subtle, but yeah, it's good. And I want to open up the filter a bit more. Yeah, that's cool. Now let's hear it on the chorus. And this is where I'll actually reach to the instrumental bus. I'll saturate it a bit, and I'll shape the overall EQ also a bit, because that's what I would do like in the beginning in my top-down mixing, but here we are not top-down mixing, but we're kind of getting into top-down, but like in a weird way. Okay, let's make this 1-2 so that it doesn't confuse us. You see how this THD is actually, it's like saturating, but in such a pleasant way. Dev codes. At what volume level do you usually mix? Sometimes I watch tutorials and after applying effects I don't hear the difference. I understand that it's hard to answer exactly, but is it louder than normally listening to music? No, I actually mix at pretty quiet levels. I mean, not that quiet that you don't hear the low frequency impact, but pretty quiet. Sometimes I watch tutorials and after applying effects I don't hear the difference. I don't know why. But I mean, the difference shouldn't be there that obvious many times. Because as you could hear if you were here in the beginning, or if you weren't, you can watch it when it's over from the beginning. As you could hear, the mix itself was kind of, I mean, not the mix, the raw tracks, they were kind of already there. So I'm just gluing them together. I don't want to make like a drastically different picture. That's not the goal of mixing. For some people maybe, but globally I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's better to keep the idea of the original tracks, but just sculpt them. PK, I'm a little late to the stream, as you know, and I'm wondering if you went with the Bergstrand samples this time too. I'm amazed that the drums sound so thick and punchy with only one single plugin. No, nothing here. This is just the Get Good drums P4. Just that. They sound cool. Actually, the kick already sounds pretty triggered in that one, but I believe it's not triggered at all. But that's just how the kick sounds. So I was pretty cool with the raw sounds. Jonathan Joseph, how do you blend your room and your snare? Yeah, I was showing a little earlier that the room is actually really kind of loud. So here's my snare, just only the snare without anything. And here's my room. And now together. So the snare is just like the closed mic is just like poking, and the room is the whole body and everything else. And in the mix it sounds like this. I think actually the snare could go even a little further down, together with the room, of course, because we were kind of keeping that as one entity. And there's also a pretty cool thing that I kind of found out when I saw actually Bergstrand's that PK here mentioned. Bergstrand's Nail Your Mix, if you're familiar with that. When I saw how he was mixing Future Breed Machine by Meshuggah, I actually found out a pretty cool thing for myself that I didn't do that before, I just didn't care. But after that Nail the Mix video, I was really like, yeah, that makes so much sense. That when you boost some frequencies on your close mic of the snare, for example, and it works with the other drums too, but mainly I kind of use that with the snare. You want to boost the same, at least, area of frequencies in the rooms and on the reverb bus too. And then they immediately click together. For example, I boosted a little like 2.4, 2.5K on the snare, and I boosted the same thing on the reverb bus and on the room bus. And they really click together really, really good if you use this kind of technique. So just keep in mind, I think Daniel Bergstrand doesn't give bad advice. PK, yeah, I have the P4 library, that's why I asked. I'm just having issues with routing it in my DAW, so I rely on Easy Drummer until I find a solution. The P4 sounds super thick already, especially the VK snare. Yeah, this is the VK snare, and P4 is great. You just like load it in and it works. Just needs a little bit of tweaking, just especially on the toms only. Everything else is pretty much mixable out of the box. Jonathan Joseph, are these guitars real amps or DI with amp sims? This is the Kemper. And the funny thing is that this profile is actually, it's a Vox amp. It's like a Vox AC30. But a Kemper lets you sculpt the tone after you profile an amp, and you can like do anything to it. So the profile is just a Vox AC30, just like kicked in the balls and driven hard. And the IR that I use here is some crazy blend mix of IRs that I made. It's made of, I think, a couple of that I made myself and a couple of kind of commercial IRs, but together it's like a new IR that I don't even remember how I made it, but it's but I have it. And actually you can also have it. Below this video, you can find a link to my Patreon page, and I actually posted this IR that I used on this album, on this song, so it's this one. I posted it for free there, you can find it there, just scroll the page, you'll find the link. It's called Arsafes Cab, I believe, and I wrote that it's from the Revolt album, so you can find it, and if you like it, you can just support me on Patreon. I'll have to plug myself a bit. And you can get like loads of other IRs I also posted there for patrons only, and other stuff, demos, projects, different stuff. PK reminds me of an Ownhammer type IR. Yeah, probably. The EQ curve is kind of similar to something Ownhammer would do, especially with the Mesa and Marshall cabs. Oh, sorry, not, yeah, Marshall. Yes. So you can find this cab on my Patreon. Okay, where were we? Yeah, I was fiddling a bit with the bus. I don't need this too much. Yeah, sounds cool. And now I'll introduce just a bit of bus compression. Score Storm, hey, you're pretty late. But still, we're not finished. So now we just mix the drums, guitars, and bass. And we'll do the synths now. So, a little bit of compression on the instrumental bus. The thing is that I want to kind of emulate an SSL bus compressor on this one. As you can see, there's no bus compressor in this plugin. But if my memory serves me good, I think this one is a VCA compressor too. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Correct me if it isn't, but I think it is. I won't Google it now. No time for that. So I'll use this as my kind of bus compressor. On a bus, I want to have super fast release. No, I mean, not super fast, but okay, something like this. And a pretty much kind of middle to fastish attack. But here you cannot actually do that, so I'll try for the fast attack. I'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll turn it off. And the ratio will be like 2:1. Posty, it's exactly the VCA compressor. Thanks. Yeah, then I'm not crazy. Okay, so we'll start with a fast attack. And I don't like it. So, yeah, we'll go with the mid to slow attack. Yeah, now it's good. So what I'm doing here is I would just want to touch the bus so that, again, it just glues stuff together, and I don't want anything crazy on this one. So let's just listen with and without. And we'll compensate a bit. Yeah, I think I just initially dropped the level so that it doesn't like burst into flames in the stream. Yeah, it was dropped a bit already. Or not. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Oh, yes. I made the input gain -4. So I won't be able really to like A-B it now, but I like what I'm hearing, so I'll keep it that way. Cool. Now we are bringing in the synths. So first of all, I want to bring in the synth basses, because that's kind of also the foundation of the tone. PK, listening to this mix, I'd make a petition for you to remix both Retocracy and Revolt with GGD. It sounds crazy good. Yeah. Oh, come on. I should make new stuff. I mean, Revolt was out like 5 years ago. I just realized it like a couple of days ago, and I was like, oh man, that's so crazy, and I still didn't release my next full length. I'm so bad, but this year you'll get stuff from me for sure. So we're getting to the synth basses, so I'll just mute these for now. So synth bass 2. The only thing I'll pretty much do with this is just filter out the high end. So it should just work with the guitars. I think actually Devin Townsend kind of did this kind of stuff in early strapping and his early solo stuff, where you get this kind of synth guitar doubler that's like very mid-heavy, and it gives so much space, like you're in a big kind of mothership kind of thing. And I think I got this thing from his early works. Posty, yeah, times go super fast when you're not looking. Nah, totally. And I don't need any compression on this. It's like already like compressed by distortion, like super heavily. So let's listen to the mix. Maybe I'll just boost the mids a little. So this was just my idea of the synth guitar here. Same thing goes with this one. So it gives kind of an industrial feeling to the whole mix, because without it, it's just kind of metal. And with it, it immediately gets kind of an artificial kind of feeling. That's what I wanted. And I do the same thing in Aristocracy too. The whole album is filled with synth doubling guitars. PK layering guitars with a subtle synth melody definitely makes it a wider and more in-depth sound. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. I mean, I do that almost all the time. I don't do that in Kartikeya because I want kind of more of a natural feeling in that one. But in the Arsafes stuff, mostly all the rhythm guitars are doubled with synths. Score Storm, orchestral metal in the future. Yeah, almost. Only without orchestra. I mean, I have a little bit of strings here. Okay, so we have the synth bass rolling. Now we'll open up this one. I don't want to do anything with this. It already works good in the mix. This is another thing that I want to talk about is if you hear that something is okay in the mix, you shouldn't have to do anything, because mostly your conscious self would just tell you, okay, you have this track here, so you should reach to the compressor and equalizer and do something because it's there. No. If it sounds good, it sounds good. You shouldn't touch it. So this synth sounds good. I won't touch it. PK Scorestorm, check his Hellroom project. Yeah, that's orchestral as fuck. Scorestorm, oh, orchestral sounds so natural, septic flesh. Not sure what you're talking about, but yes. Posty, yeah, if it's fine, don't fix it. Golden rule for almost anything. Totally. Now we'll see what this does. Maybe I'll bring up the mids a bit, because the sound is a little scooped. And also, don't be afraid of big moves, because here I'm almost like 7 dB. But doesn't matter. If it works, it works. Yeah, sounds cool. Could get rid of a little of the low mids here and boost a bit high mids, because it's a little dull sounding. Yeah, I'm pretty cool with that. Now we have this choir and string thing. Yeah, I'm pretty cool with the choir. I also don't want to do anything. The strings probably I should do. Yeah, for example, bring them up. I think I'll just get them on another track. So I was pretty sure that I won't need to do them separately, but probably I do. So, with the strings here, this is some ancient plugin I had back in the day. Sounds not so real, but in the mix it works. I think it was called Miroslav Philharmonic or something like that. Okay, cool. I am happy with that. Now with the effects. PK, there's so much more elements I can hear in this mix compared to the album mix. Didn't know that there were so many synths and strings as I'm hearing here. Sounds so goddamn big, love it. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I mean, I'm progressing in the mix side of things and hopefully in the other sides too. So, yeah, now you can hear stuff. There's actually so much going on in most of my songs, and that's why I actually made a kind of a poll, don't know how that's pronounced. It doesn't matter where you choose the answers. For Kartikeya, where people had to choose 3 tracks from the Samudra album, that I'll just show you in the same kind of way, but not mixing anything, just I'll show you all the elements, everything that's there, and I think it'll be pretty interesting because 50% of that is kind of drowned in the mix. That's done intentionally because I don't want it to be just a big mess. But it's always interesting to kind of find out what's going on actually underneath. Okay, back to the mix. Loop. Yeah, I'm cool with this one. Second loop. Bring the high mids a bit higher here. And maybe bring down the low mids a bit. Yeah, there's also a pretty important thing that in these kind of little verse bits, you want to keep the impact of the next kind of aggressive bit higher. So if you make these kind of loops or synths higher in a verse, then you'll just lose impact on the next part. Because the next part should be like a little more like boomy. So that's why I'm kind of trying not to exaggerate these loops here. Now, this little loop, okay, can bring it higher. So this one is just keeping the groove like ta 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 ta. So it shouldn't be like that obvious, but it should be kind of with the drums. It should play with the drums together. Just to keep kind of a flowing kind of groove. PK, you really like bit crushing things, don't you? Oh, distortion and bit crush is like my everything. I kind of do that too. Yeah, Probably to all my stuff. And now, the main element of the song. This is, and now you stay really focused, this little thing here, the outro effects. This is Lars Ulrich trying out his Saint Anger snare. There's a video on YouTube with that. He's like hitting it and he goes like, oh fuck. And it's with this beep on it. And in the lyrics and the vocals, I have the word fuck in the end. That's kind of ending the song. And I was thinking like, I don't just want to end it like just as it is. Why can't I put a Lars Ulrich feat in my song with him telling fuck, and especially with the beep? He cannot sue me. So we're cool, Lars. Fuck! But you can hear his like, oh fuck, his little voice there. Fuck! Yes, that's the main part of the song. It should go higher. Yes, beautiful. Posty, LOL, yes, PK, hahaha. Oh my fucking god, Roman. Yeah, I like those little kind of thingies. Dav Coles, can you please talk about your SSL compressor configuration method? You, like many people, set a large threshold and select an attack and release. Sorry if I missed this at the beginning of the stream. Yeah, I talked about it at the beginning, but no problem. I'll show you. I mean, I don't have to show, I'll just tell you. So, mainly I kind of I try to not touch the input gain, I just leave it where it is. Sometimes only if it's clipping, I'll just move it back a little. And then I'll just only use the threshold to kind of get in my ballpark. And with set a large threshold. Yeah, that's why I set it large, because I mean, I could set it like low, but bring the input gain like really higher. But I don't know, I'm just not used to that. I'm used to just driving the compressor with a threshold knob. And with attack and release, well, if I want something to hit hard, like with a hard transient, for example, a kick, a snare, maybe some impact effects, like some of those cinematic kind of impact stuff, I would want a slow attack, because I want the transient to come through and then the compressor to work. If I don't need that, for example, in vocals mostly, in keys, overheads, I don't need a kind of a peaky transient. Then I'll use a fast attack so that it's just like the compressor works immediately. And with the release, for metal mostly I'll use like almost the fastest release I can get, almost for everything. I mean, it depends only if you have some maybe something that you want to kind of pump, then you can use a slower release. But mostly for metal, the release will be fast, and for rock, mostly too. So I hope I answered your question. And okay, Lars is here. Now we'll do the violin. I already have the effects for the violin inside the bus, so I'll be just treating it as one instrument because it'll work that way. And the violin here is really dark. As you can see, I mean, it was recorded pretty dark, so we'll need to brighten it up, because in the mix it'll just like, you'll hear it'll just disappear now. Just somewhere there, so we need the brightness. And we can bring the effects a bit more, because in the mix, Dev Cold, sweet, thanks, no problem. In the mix, we want to hear a bit more of the delays, because this violin should be like crazy over the top. And I can hear a little going on there. I'll just manually. Yeah, here it is. I think it's this one. Let's just duck it down. Yeah, it's that one. It'll still be there, but we're not going into detail of editing here, so I just keep it there. Doesn't matter. If I would need, I would automate it like with some EQ. It would just duck the high frequencies there. So imagine I did it. And I mean, normally I wouldn't compress a violin hard, but this is kind of a guitar solo played on a violin. So I want heavier compression than normally so that it sticks out in the mix and doesn't get just swallowed up. So here I'll use a fast attack and a fast release so that it's just like one big piece. At the moment, I'll leave it like this, but I'll come back to it when I have all the vocals in place, because I normally treat a solo as kind of the lead instrument in the part, the same as the vocals. The vocals are always the lead instrument, only maybe if it's a choir underneath or something. So I basically, when I mix, I try to balance the solo, any solo, guitar solo, violin solo, key solo, any solo to the vocals, so that they're kind of an extension of the vocals. That's how I do it. Probably some people do it differently. So finally, we are getting to the vocals. So first of all, what I like to do is I get the lead to work. Whoops. And when I get the sound of the lead vocal that I'm totally cool with, then I start adding all the backs and stuff like that. And I already did kind of a balance between the effects of the vocals. And again, for those who came later, again, I want to say that all the reverbs, delays, all that thing in this mix is printed out, because that's not part of the mix, that's part of kind of production. So I'm treating this as if I just have an SSL console, I'm just given the tracks from the producer or the band, and I just have to mix it. So I'm not using any extra reverbs, delays, and everything, so that I just keep this project to just one plugin, as said in the description and the name of the video. So that's why I have all these delays and reverbs printed out. So I just deal with them as another track on my console, or on my virtual console. And again, for those who are not here from the beginning, the vocal double for the lead is minus 7 dB. It's just there for just augmenting the vocals a little bit. So, and I treat those two in the same bus just as one vocal track, because the double is like really quiet.
The neon lights are on! The neon lights are on!
So with the vocals here,
Neon lights are on! The neon lights are on!
I'm almost pretty much satisfied with the EQ. I will probably make the low mids a little lower.
Neon lights are on! The neon lights are on!
This kind of thing.
Neon lights are on! The neon lights are on! Neon lights are on!
So that it's kind of sitting a bit deeper in the mix and not like in your face.
Neon lights are on! The neon lights are on!
Then with compression, what I do with vocals mostly. I mean, on a vocal, I would use something like an 1176 emulation or the real thing that I don't have. And pretty much here I'll go with the same settings that I would use on that unit. So that's like fastest release, fastest attack, 4:1 ratio, and just drive the threshold till I get, for extreme vocals, around 8 dB of reduction. And I mean, for most metal vocals, I'll maybe get a little lower if I have some kind of quiet parts or something like that. But here I don't have any quiet parts. So we'll slam the shit out of the vocal, because it should again be just like one brick that's above the mix and that you can hear always. And we come into one of the problems of this kind of a mix, that we don't have the opportunity to use a de-esser. That we should use kind of the built-in methods of this plugin. So you can do a bit of de-essing here, either by doing it like I did the kick drum. So I would just copy one vocal track, and I would filter it like to leave only the S's there, and I would sidechain that into the vocal so that the vocal is being compressed only when the S's happen. That would be one complicated method to do it. The easier method is actually to use kind of the inside de-essing of the plugin itself. So for that, I'll just bring up another instance. And here's what we do. So first of all, we'll find the S's.
Neon lights are on.
Okay, let me... I'll just loop this so that I don't have to press the play all the time.
The neon lights are on.
Yeah, and I almost forgot that I wanted to... where are you? I wanted to saturate the vocal, because we're having some like heavy vocals. They should be saturated because they sit better in the mix when they have saturation going on. Hosty, yeah, find those asses, booty hunter. That I can do.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
So that they're just more like kind of savage sounding.
The neon lights are on. 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 The neon lights are on.
Okay, that does the trick. And now the de-essing itself.
The neon lights are on.
So first of all, again, we find the S's.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
Actually, maybe I'll even no, this is too little. Doesn't matter. Or maybe actually I can do it. I mean, this bell on the high frequency is not the Q on that bell is not controllable, so I cannot like make it too thin. But it is on this one. But just remembering that the real console doesn't have this X3 switch. But this plugin actually does, so this kind of shifts the frequency range higher. I'm not really sure how much higher, but we'll just see by ear. But I think I'll get to the S's with this shift kind of thing, and then I can just like make the Q really thin.
The neon lights are on.
Oh yes, awesome.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
And here we are. Oh, actually it shows you. It's 8.4.
The neon lights are on.
So this is, we can make it a little.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
So, and now what we do, we press the side chain, and that just deactivates the EQ as an EQ, as a post kind of EQ, and leaves it just as kind of a pre-EQ before the compressor. So it just triggers the compressor. So when you boost a frequency, the compressor ducks it when it hears it. That's the idea. That's, well, mainly that's how de-essing works. So, yeah, let's see. What did we do? Again, fast attack, fast release. We don't need any transient information going through.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
and we'll have to compensate a little.
The neon lights are on. 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 The neon lights are on.
Okay, we can actually do it like this. We'll take, no, we won't touch the highs, but we'll take away the lows, and we'll just check what we did.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights.
I want to just make sure that the compressor doesn't hear like anything else. It hears only the SS and reacts only to that. It's a bit tricky with a channel strip because you kind of have only 4 knobs, but we'll get to it.
The neon lights are on. 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 The neon lights are on.
Okay, let's try it.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
And here you are.
The neon lights are on. 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 The neon lights are on.
And I think we're also getting a little more grit out of the compressor itself.
The neon lights are on. 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 The neon lights are on.
So it kind of, the SS were here, the vocal was here, and now it just did something like this.
The neon lights are on.
We can compensate back.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
Just kind of to be true and A-B it in a real way.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon.
And let's listen to it in the mix.
The neon lights are on. 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 The neon lights are on.
Yeah, I think it worked pretty good. Okay.
The neon lights are on. The neon.
I think we can even make it a bit less obvious.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
We'll see when we have all the vocals going.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
Okay, let's check the chorus.
Today you're number fucking 1. Jade.
Actually, the mix is not that much kind of super shiny. It doesn't have like too much high end, so I'll probably tame a bit here
The neon.
on the vocal, so it's not like.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
And just make it a bit duller, and then if I'll need the whole mix to be brighter, I'll just do it on the master. Currently, we're not having anything on the master.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. Today you're number fucking 1. Jade.
You see, it's sorry, it's a bit too bright.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
Yeah, now it works.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. Today you're number fucking 1. Jade.
I'll have to see also a bit.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights.
I mean, my extreme vocals, they're pretty heavy in that kind of barking region, you know, the like 2K. That's like, and I need to tame it a bit.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on.
Yeah, now I like it.
The neon lights are on. The neon lights are on. Today you're number fucking 1.
Dev Codes, what volume level do you usually get on kick drum and drum group after effects on their channels? And what the volume level of the entire mix before effects on the master track? To tell you the truth, I'm not a big fan of kind of over-checking levels and metering, so I just mainly do it by ear. I just try to, I mean, because I'm top-down mixing, I just try to see that I'm not clipping any plugins that I put on my bus track, like my whole master bus track, and that I'm not making the compressor to kind of go crazy. And because on a master bus, my compressor will be compressing like maximum 3 dB, so the gain reduction is not that much. So I'm just keeping it that way so that I don't hit more than 3 dB of gain reduction. I think that's kind of my main rule, and the other things I just go by ear. I mean, there is a rule that you should treat all kind of analog modeling plugins. You should go into them, I think at minus 18 dB probably, if I'm not mistaken now. I think 18, yeah. But I don't watch meters. If it sounds good, it's good. Nah, I don't know. Probably I'm just already used to doing some moves, and I already know that they'll work, so I just don't give too much thought to that. So I hope I answered your question at least somehow. You know what I want to do? I want to actually bring up a little bit of high-end information on the delay track. Because at the moment it's like super dull. Not too much, because we don't want the delay to like go crazy, because I always use ping pong delays on vocals. And that way I just fill in all the space like that I want the vocals to fill in, just not to make millions of double tracks in the left and right. I like the lead vocal to be strictly in the middle without any stereo widening. Many people do that, like choruses or just like widening plugins. I just do that white thing only with delays, with a ping pong delay that goes like left, right, left, right, left, right. That's it. So you're kind of tricked into hearing the vocal to be like wide, but actually it's just like strictly mono in the center. Okay, I think the delays are pretty good. Now let's check the reverb. Yeah, the reverb, it's pretty deep and it's good because these are extreme vocals. We don't need too much verb on that. With clean vocals, it would be a different balance. Now let's bring in the back vocals. And for that, sorry. For that, actually, I'll bring in the same chain that I have for the lead vocals because, I mean, the vocals are similar. They're recorded on the same mic, same everything. So I'll just get the threshold a little lower so it doesn't hit the compressor so hard, because there are like 5 vocals in the back vocal group. We don't want that to kind of over compress. Scorestorm, PK, okay. Scorestorm, good luck, watch the stream, record later. Okay, sure, bye-bye. So, here's what we do. And the same with the S's. We want the same thing to happen. Maybe, again, I'll just watch the threshold.
Jade!
Yeah, it's a bit too much. Oh, sorry.
Jade! Jade!
Yeah, they sound good. Just check the balance.
On! Jade!
And with the effect.
Jade! Jade!
Oops.
Jade! Come on, just to make Jade!
Also, one thing that I'll do on the vocal group is I'll put a barely touching compressor, like again with the fast attack and fast release, that'll just act, Waves has a plugin, it's called Vocal Writer, that listens to your whole track and it just kind of writes the fader so that all the vocals are on the same level. I kind of do the same thing, but just with a compressor, because I already have my levels kind of where I want them, but this is just another layer of just glue for the vocals. But I'll do that later, so.
Jade!
Okay, I'm cool with this one.
Come on, dance with me, Jade! Come on, dance with me, Jade!
Something going on there.
Come on, dance with me, Jade! Come on, dance with me, Jade! Come on, dance with me, Jade! Come on, dance with me!
Okay, let me check.
Come on, dance with me, Jade!
Okay, there's some kind of an artifact in the vocal that again I would just like automate out. But I won't do it now because we're sitting here for 2 hours and 20 minutes already. That's pretty much.
For all the world to see, come on, dance with me, for all the world to fall.
Yes. And here we'll also cut off all the vocal ambience because we want it to just like abruptly end.
For all the world to fall.
Yes. And Lars is doing his job there. Okay, now we'll get the gang vocals going. So,
The hookers from the bar here to...
again, same thing with the compressor.
The hookers from the bar here to join the fun. The hookers from the bar here to join the fun.
Okay. I believe I didn't use any... Oh, no, actually I did use some reverb.
The hookers from the bar here to join the fun.
Okay, cool.
Neon lights are on, and all the hookers.
Okay, this can go lower.
Neon lights are on, and all the hookers from the bar here to join the fun. Today your number.
Even lower.
Neon lights are on, and all the hookers from the bar here to join the fun.
It'll also get a little evened up when I do that vocal group thing that I told about. Okay, now let's get these verse vocals going. Posty, yep, gotta leave your room and have fun. Thanks a lot. Come back anytime. So yeah, with this one, we'll do a little processing on the first channel of the verse because it's like super heavy distorted.
You found a better way.
And we should filter out some highs.
You found a better way.
And get some mids.
You found a better way. You found a better way.
And see how it clicks with this one.
You found a better way. You found a better way.
And now we'll see in the mix.
You found a better way. You found a better way to do every motherfucking thing that I say.
This is kind of a verse, but also it's kind of an effect, so it shouldn't sound like totally like the lead vocal. But I think it can go a little higher. And I'll compress it just a bit, not too much because it's already like a brick because of the distortion, but I'll compress it just to glue it with that second track, with the effect track, with this one. That'll be enough. Yeah, I think it's good. I think even we can bring it just a bit more. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Okay, now let's see how it works with the violin. Wow. That shouldn't be loud. No one heard that on the album. So we'll just automate it. Come on, go lower. That should just be kind of an Easter egg. If at this moment monetization would actually bother me, because it doesn't, because I get like 70 cents or something like that from all this stuff. So yeah, probably only the vocals of the song would demonetize my video like immediately. Now I'm thinking that the high frequencies on the violin are probably a bit too much. Now with the vocals there, I think I want the choir to go a bit louder. Because it should be kind of more impactful. And also now I want the instrumental bus to be a little more bass heavy. And have a little more information in the low mids. And I'll compensate the snare a bit. Cool, and now on the drum bus I'll try one little thing. Maybe it won't work with this plugin. Because normally I'd put a limiter on the drum bus just to shave off the snare kind of pokiness just a bit. I mean, you can kind of make a limiter here, but we'll see how it works because I'm not sure that it'll work good. We'll try. Come on, down to me, Jade. Crazy. Come on, down to me, Jade. For all the world to see. Come on, down to me, Jade. For all the world to see. Come on, down to me, Jade. Okay, I think the fast attack is pretty much overkill here. Come on, down to me, Jade. For all the world to see. Come on, down to me, Jade. Yeah, it kind of glued it in a pretty interesting way. We don't need that. And now in the mix I can hear that the toms are a bit buried, so we'll see what we can do with that. Not even buried there, they have a little to a little high frequency info. See in the beginning. Not really fond of one frequency I have here. Maybe I'll have to compress it just a little bit more. And without a fast attack. And I think also on the vocal effects, where is it? I'll just lower the low mids back a bit. Where are we? No. Okay, I'll just do the 1K thing here. And I'll use this band just for the low mids. Because it's a little too contrasty with the lead vocal. Okay, that's cool. Now, what I was talking about for the vocal group. So actually I'll have...
The neon lights are on!
Again, fast attack, fast release.
The neon lights are on! The neon lights are...
And this is kind of just the additional glue, so I won't do anything else.
The neon lights are on!
And you'll just see how it kind of ducks a bit when all these big backs come in.
Come on, dance with me, Jade!
So it kind of, again, kind of becomes a brick.
Come on, dance with me, Jade! For all the world to see! The fucking music's on! The fucking music's on! And all the bitches on the bar here and trying to find. So say your number fucking one! Jade! Come on, dance with me, Jade!
And now I feel that the bass guitar could use just a bit more low end.
The fucking music's on! The fucking music's on! And all the bitches are here and trying to find. So say your number fucking...
And we should check if we're not hitting the bus too hard.
The fucking music's on!
No, it's cool.
The fucking music's on! The fucking music's on!
Now, what I would normally do is I would put a dynamic EQ on the bus, on the instrumental bus, and bring the vocal into that, so that the instrumental bus ducks just a bit in the vocal frequency when the vocal comes in, just like 1 dB. You cannot really hear it, but you can kind of feel it. But here, I don't think it's necessary because it all kind of glues together. So, I'm pretty much ready with the song. I think we did everything that we could in this situation. So let's just listen to it from beginning to the end. Then if you have some questions, I'll answer. And if not, then we'll just finish. So let's listen to the song. This is the mix with one plugin, Brainworks BX Console SSL 9000J. Only this plugin was used for mixing the song. Let's go. Okay, that was a song. I hope you like the mix. I think it turned out pretty cool. So especially with the fact that it's done like with just one plugin, like in the good old days. I mean, they didn't do it with the plugin; they did it with the console. But basically, we just mixed the song with a pure console, without any outboard gear, without anything, just channels, just channel strips. So, with this video, I just wanted to show you guys, girls, that it's actually possible to make a good sounding mix with just like one good tool. So that's why it's not necessary to buy like tons of plugins if you don't need them and just someone told you you need them, because actually you don't. I mean, you can make a whole mix with production and stuff, with all the pretty things, just with basically a channel strip. I mean, like a full mix. Channel strip, like a limiter, bus compressor, a delay, and a reverb, and you're good to go. So, but here we just use just one channel strip for everything. So tell me if you like it, tell me if you didn't for some reason, and if you didn't, tell me why. If you have any questions, I'll gladly answer. And while you're asking, if you are asking, actually, I'll talk a bit about one thing. I'll have this whole project on my Patreon page. So I'll just upload an archive with the whole Cubase file, so you can just open it, see what's going on. See if you need some presets from this, you can just save them. You'll get all the tracks. You can try to mix it. If you do, show it to me. I'll gladly listen to your mixes of the song. And there'll also be a folder with all the wave files if you don't have Cubase, if you work in another DAW. So that'll be on my Patreon. Be sure to check it out. And you can just generally support me on my Patreon page. And I'll also post this mix, like just a stereo file, on my Patreon for free, so you can get that for your listening pleasure and analysis, I don't know. And you'll get the whole project if you become a patron with any tier that's there. So, I think that's it. I think I told about everything in this mix. Eddie Construct, loved it, very informative. Thanks for doing this, man. No problem. I'm really glad that you liked it, and I really hope everyone else liked it. I'm having fun doing these kind of techie kind of streams. So I know they are long, and you really have to like sit down and give like 3 hours of your time to me and my stream. So I'm really thankful for that. I'm really glad that you were here with me. I'll surely do more of these kind of things. And I'll probably do other one plugin mixes with other channel strips, other plugins. We'll see. So yeah, I think that's all. Again, thanks a lot for being with me. Check out my Patreon page. If you're not subscribed to my YouTube, please do and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. So, I'm Roman Arsafes. This was my mixing a song with one plugin with the Brainworks BX Console SSL 9000J. Really hope you like it. I liked it. So, bye-bye. See you next time.